Do you remember that time we played Diablo? The reason I started playing video games was you. You loved gaming, and I loved you. I wanted to spend time with you, to feel close and connected with you. I wanted your approval, and I thought if I got good at video games and played them with you, then maybe you'd love me too. But I quickly learned that I could never win playing this game with you, no matter how hard I tried. It was like that when we played World of Warcraft in the summer of 2017. And it was like that when we played Diablo in 2023, 6 years later. And it reminded me why I slowly stopped asking you to play games with me at all after 2017, and it wasn't just because of the assortment of holes in my walls and the broken controllers left behind in the aftermath of your rage quitting. I had recognized that playing my own games alone was more enjoyable than playing them with you, that I could suddenly focus and excel when left to my own devices, and the only thing that had been holding me back was you, with your harsh words and never-ending criticism. I remember being jealous of couples who gamed together, and joking with friends about how I could never game with my boyfriend because it would lead to intense fighting if we lost because you'd blame me for being incompetent. But when you asked me to play Diablo with you in 2023 after it released, I decided to take another chance at gaming with you, thinking that somehow this time was going to be different than all the other times, and that this time it would be fun, since it was my first time playing Diablo, and a lot of time had passed since we had ever gamed together. The only difference between 2017 and 2023 being that I could recognize something then that I couldn't see before. And lately, I keep thinking back to that last time we played together. You treated me like an idiot for asking questions in a game, when it was a game I'd never played. You chided me for slowing you down when I stopped to grab items or clicked on story lines. You blew up on me when we lost boss fights, and you blamed me solely for the loss. You took out your anger on me by verbally scolding me, when I was already upset about the loss, and I just sat there choked up in silence every time you berated me. You had one job and you couldn't even spam a few keys, idiot. Do you even know how to play your character? Sorry, we got to slow down, we have a dummy here. You had no patience for a learning curve. There was never any, it's okay, you're learning, we will get it next time. When you made those comments, when you belittled me, talked down to me, called me names, any fun I was having was instantly overshadowed by feelings of inadequacy, like I was only dead weight to you, like I was incompetent, incapable, like I was holding you back, too dumb to understand. I couldn't enjoy the game. I couldn't explore areas or look at drops or take time to read the dialogue in the story lines like I wanted to because it would only make me a nuisance and slow you down. I couldn't even ask you questions to figure out how to improve because you had no patience for my questions. I was too busy worrying about annoying you to have any fun at all. I was trying so hard for your affirmation, to make you proud of me, to make you see what a great girlfriend I was for playing games with you. But every time I did anything well, it's like you didn't even notice. And every mistake I made you made me well aware, and punished me verbally for it. The first couple days we played, I was able to bottle up my emotions. Eventually, I cracked. At the end of a weekend of gaming non-stop, the entirety of which I endured a constant and steady barrage of verbal assault, I began to cry silently. I tried to hide it because deep down I knew you never cared about my feelings, you were never a safe space for me to be emotionally vulnerable. But in that moment, I couldn't bottle up my feelings anymore. The tears just welled up in the aftershock of your words, and I wiped them away before you could notice. I continued to play, while fighting tears, minimizing any communication. I just couldn't understand how someone who is supposed to love me could say those hurtful things to me with such contempt in their eyes, like you truly were disgusted by me, like you hated me. And I just wondered why you even were still playing with me if I was truly so terrible. You said worse things to me, your girlfriend, than I have ever said to the most toxic trolls in my team on League. I tried to hold back the flood until lights off when you slept. But you noticed something was wrong when I got quiet and was short with you in pillow talk. And finally you hit me with, "Why the fuck are you crying?" You didn't ask that because you cared to understand my feelings, there wasn't any warmth in your tone, no ounce of concern about our misunderstanding one another. There was just rage and indignation that I would dare to cry. You better stop fucking crying right now or I'm gonna be really pissed. The inflection with which you spoke was so threatening and full of contempt, which only made me cry harder because, atop the searing pain of feeling so unlovable and worthless to you, I was also filled with fear. Your fits of rage always terrified me when you got angry and yelled at me like that. I found myself apologizing out of fear, saying, I'm sorry, over and over because I knew my tears were the cause of your anger and I knew I was incapable of stopping them from coming out, and I was terrified of your reaction. Even though you should have been the one apologizing. But you never knew when you were wrong, and explaining that to you always felt so impossible because you were so argumentative with excuses. You invalidated my feelings by gaslighting me into thinking something was wrong with me when the problem was with you. You're crying over a game, are you serious right now? You're so emotional, I talk to everyone that way. I tried to slowly through long pauses explain to you where I was coming from, while sobbing and stuttering, tripping over my words, filled with the fear and anxiety of not being able to communicate my point, a result of having been repeatedly misunderstood, dismissed, and invalidated 1,000 times before in similar situations. Wow, you're so fucking manipulative. I was stunned by the accusation, and confused why you felt this way. You went on to elaborate. You're just crying to make me feel bad. You're so fucking manipulative. You accused me of crying as a manipulation tactic to make you look like the bad guy, because you really couldn't fathom the concept that in those moments you were. And you hated that my tears triggered a sense of shame in you, and rather than accept that shame and take accountability for hurting me, you let pride and rage get in the way, and you became angry at my tears for causing you to feel badly towards yourself. Funny how when it came to verbal and emotional abuse, you refused to accept that shame and apologize. But if you physically hurt me, you could immediately be genuinely remorseful and feel terrible for hurting me. Like the time when you accidentally cut me with a knife because you were trying to get a rise out of me. As fucked up as that situation was, as fucked as it was that you were willing to use my fears against me like that because you got off to the power and control and my terrified reaction, you were genuinely able to recognize that your actions hurt me, and truly apologize, and never do it again. So it didn't leave a scar. But all the times when you emotionally hurt me and refused to apologize just because my tears weren't droplets of blood, were the moments that left the deepest scars. Those moments that stay with me, moments that really made me emotionally disconnect from you, where I realized that I could not be emotionally vulnerable with you, that you were not a safe place for me. You thought relationships were some kind of game of power and control to be played, where one wins through domination, aggression, and manipulation, where kindness and respect should never get in the way of winning arguments and coming out on top. So you could never fathom that I might be coming from a place of respect and love, where I was crying because I was genuinely hurt and confused by your cruelty. You called me an idiot for crying over a game when it was never about the game, but your condescending attitude to me the entire time we played the game, which reflected the total lack of respect you had for me in our relationship. And when you grew tired of listening to me try to explain why I'm in tears, and you were over-talking about it, you told me to drop it by saying, "Well, I apologized already. Didn't I?" And I remember feeling so crazy because I hadn't even heard so much as an insincere semblance of an apology or a single half-assed, "I'm sorry," which I had been waiting desperately to hear, to feel some kind of validation. You had forgotten that I was only playing the game for you. Because I loved you. Because I valued the time we spent together, even if it was playing a game that I wouldn't have ever played on my own. You took it for granted that I chose to play the game with you at all. You couldn't see how much I loved you or how deeply it hurt me every time you treated me with such disdain. All I wanted was your approval and affection, to feel safe and close and connected with you. But I could never even have the words to communicate what was wrong, what my emotional needs to feel supported and loved were, so we could talk it out. And you could never ask even once what my needs were before flying into rage and defensiveness. And I could never feel safe with you. Because time and time again, if I showed that I was upset or hurt, you would get angry and punish me through your words, so that I never do it again. If I confronted you with conflict and what my emotional needs were, I was repeatedly dismissed, invalidated, shamed, and gaslit. I learned over the years through your repeated words and actions that you didn't care about my feelings, that you had no interest in my opinions or having a good faith argument with someone you considered inferior. Your only interest was in being right. There was only peace when I had fully silenced myself. At some point, I had to make the decision to quit playing a game I will never win.